I'm Pim Kemasinki from Chiang Mai City Life, and I'm back here today on my colourful daybed with Tiggy and a very, very special guest today, which is called Edward Shinapat. So Edward, I have known, briefly for the last, I would say, year, perhaps. So as editor of City Life, we get a lot of submissions, and one day, about a year ago, I got a random email from this person, and he said, I want to write an article. And I thought to myself, okay, go for it, and you did. And you've been writing articles for us, many, many articles, mostly opinion pieces on politics, on culture, mainly politics, looking not just at Chiang Mai, Thailand, Asia, but global issues, but specifically how they affect all of us. So let's talk politics today. So as far as I know, you are from Bangkok originally. Your parents are in property. You are in property. You moved up here, but tried to enter local politics at the last mayoral election, and you want to be a politician and write a book. So that's about all I know, doing our little walk with Tiggy in the park and a few glasses of wine here and there. So Edward, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Yes. Hi all, my name is Edward. As Pim mentioned, I reached out to City News about a year ago, possibly a year and a half, when I was entering local politics. I just wanted the local English media to be covering the election race. I felt that politics, at least Thai politics, shouldn't be for Thai consumers only.
Really?
I felt that because this country has a lot of expats, right, and a lot of tourists, and many people from outside of Thailand are interested in Thai politics. And I thought that it was a good opportunity for the local English media to be covering it.
That's actually a really novel perspective to me, because I've interviewed dozens of politicians over the years, and frankly, none of them have been in the slightest interested in any foreign perspective at all. So it was really, really strange to me that you came. And another thing I found odd was that it's so hard to cover politics, as a foreign media. So give our viewers some information, because as expat viewers, you're right, they don't know anything about local politics. So tell us, what was all this mayoral election about? What was your experience through it?
Well, it was the first Chiang Mai mayor election since the coup. Yes, indeed, last year, since the coup back in 2014. So, people were excited. They were looking forward to have some sort of election. And I got tapped on the shoulder to join the race.
Which party?
Hak Chiang Mai. Hak Chiang Mai.
Hak Chiang Mai, which means love Chiang Mai in Northern Thai.
It's in Northern Thai. And so it was my first time. It was, it was a bit of a learning curve, somewhat.
Why did they tap your shoulder?
I guess they saw potential, possibly.
And who is they? I don't need names, but what was their mission? What was their vision, their platform?
You mean the party or what? Well, basically, we just wanted to. We wanted to modernize Chiang Mai. We wanted Chiang Mai to be a livable city, to be a great city for both local Chiang Mai and for expats.
Again, no one ever talks about expats. So what do you mean by livable city? What were your issues or your promises?
Well, remember my first article I wrote about soft power? It's Chiang Mai. It's an international and a vibrant city. You've got like the biggest Japanese expat community in Chiang Mai, I believe.
Huge.
Then you've got the Americans, you've got the Europeans. I mean, two of my expat best friends, they are Americans. So because I had spent half of my life overseas in Australia, I felt that I ought to speak up on this. Yeah. That I felt that Chiang Mai, whether I won the race or not, needed to be on the world's map.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right about the number of expats and the influence that they have indirectly to politics. Because, a lot of these expats are married to Thai people.
Indeed.
A lot of them have Thai children. A lot of them are fully invested in whether or not they can breathe the air in 2 months' time, or their children will be able to breathe in a generation's time. So it's really refreshing that you actually considered this perspective into all of it. So what other agendas were on your platform, and how did it differ from other parties at the time?
Well, the policies from that election were pretty similar. We all knew what we wanted in Chiang Mai. We all knew. Every candidate
Which was what?
practically said the same thing: less smog, better transportation, boosting to the economy by having more festivals and giving more livelihoods to the people of Chiang Mai, things like that.
Yeah, so why does this never happen? No, you tell me.
Well, but at least I'm beginning to see some changes. Like if you look at the parks and around the canals, I noticed that the current mayor, at least he's been doing some work cleaning up that area. Did you notice that around the canals?
Yes. He was the chief mechanic-y type under the previous mayor, wasn't he? He was the one who would fix the roads, the canals,
Yep.
he fixed the klong. So, yeah, he was like the handyman chief.
Yep.
So he does know how to do all that.
And also the issue of smog, PM 2.5, that was a big one for both, of concern to the Chiang Mai locals as well as expats. Even Nikkei publications, in which they invite you as a writer, right?
They interviewed me. Yeah.
So this smog thing, it was no longer just a local issue.
No.
It was it has this international scope in it. And so this year so far, the smog hasn't been as bad as last year or the year before. I know, fingers crossed.
Yeah. But bit to do with chance rather than any real policy that's been put into place.
Well, so I like to think that since last year, even the Bangkok government has decided to make this case วาระพิเศษแห่งชาติ like a national issue.
Yeah, good. Okay.
So I'm hoping those policies that every party had supported, had fought for, I'm hoping that some changes are underway now.
One thing you mentioned that was interesting was that you said that every party had the agenda of basically generating more, the economy for locals more. Because I'm feeling right now that there are events happening right now that are selling for 5,000 baht a ticket. No one in Chiang Mai, well, very few can afford it. Mostly it's Bangkok implants who are going to these events. A lot of the big businesses are all, Bangkok owned. So is this a concern? Is this something people are aware of, that a lot of money, that we send money to Bangkok in taxes, how much is coming back into our economy? I mean, how are we going to get our own people to, do better?
Again, I mean, if that's why I said that it's important that for the local Chiang Mai to upskill themselves, to be properly educated, so that they could actually have high salary enough to actually start investing and doing things, as opposed to rely on just money from Bangkok or money from tourist dollars.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So how do you see upskilling and educating? Because education comes from Bangkok, right?
Indeed.
So how are we going to do all that?
Like as every government has been saying, education reform, but it's not easy at all, is it?
But who reforms the educators?
Right.
Right? So, and that's another thing, that you and I are both from Bangkok originally, right? My family is all in Bangkok. Although I moved here at a much younger age, I moved here at 5. You moved here at what age?
About 7 to 8 years ago.
Yeah. So we say we Chiang Mai, we Chiang Mai.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm Chiang Mai. Right? And you are representing Chiang Mai politically, and you said the reason you went in because you live here. So how Chiang Mai do you feel? And do you feel like you're another part of the Bangkok telling Chiang Mai what to do? Or do you feel like you're part of this culture fabric now?
Through my living in Chiang Mai for about 7 to 8 years, what I've come to notice is that it's the outsiders. It's people like you, David, and people, Thais from other provinces, that are very passionate about Chiang Mai. It's the outsiders who come here, who appreciate Chiang Mai value and want to see it better.
Yeah.
You know, they are charmed and seduced by Lana culture, Lana food, by the friendly people, you know, by the weather, you know, things like that. And they want to preserve it and they want to make it better.
That's so true.
In that case, I don't see myself as 100%, you know, Lana.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I can't speak Northern dialect.
Well, what is Lana? We just had an episode about
You know,
that,
so-
didn't we?
You know, like I said, I can't speak Northern dialect.
Neither can I.
But it's because after I moved here, I love this place so much. And I know that it's actually a very, very, very international place. And that's why I want to see it. I want to see it improved.
You know, historically, this has always been an international city, right? Because we were at the crossroads
Indeed.
of the Silk Road, and all the traders, all the caravans, it all came through here. So for 700 more years, we have been an international city.
I mean, Patrick, the head of DEA Chiang Mai, he told me that DEA has opened the office in Chiang Mai in the 70s.
Yeah.
In the 70s. I
That's-
didn't realize that.
Well, there was a lot of opium going around the hills.
At the
there.
Golden Triangle, right?
Kunsa, and there was some naughty stuff going around. So, I mean, let's say you do get into politics next
Yep.
time, and you're still involved, right? Are you what's your your party now?
I'm not. It hasn't been definitive, so I rather put that on hold for now.
Right. So it's still sniffing around.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You're making me sound like I'm Tiggy. Sniffing around.
Tiggy,
Yeah.
he just insult us. No. So, well, let's talk about Thailand and our issues, you know, on the whole, right? So, I mean, you talk about politics to most people and the eyes roll and, you know, the cynicism comes out and people just feel like, what power do we have as citizens? So, you're empowering yourself by sort of wanting to go in and do something about it. But are you afraid of the corruption that you're going to face, of the perhaps, you know, the compromises you're going to have to make?
You know, there are only two main choices. Either be sitting on the fence and whine and bitch, complain, or get inside and try to change the system from the inside.
Really? And because I've thought about it myself.
Right?
Yeah, I've always been too afraid. It's terrifying.
I mean,
right?
look at AOC, Alexandria Cortez.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, she could just be, you know, continue to, you know, do waitressing or bartending, but then eventually she was, you know, she became an activist. She got involved in politics and she was nominated, you know, as Democrat, a member of representative.
Yeah, the Congress. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, but Thai politics can be a lot more volatile.
Yep.
Yeah, and there is danger. I mean, you do get politicians being killed. I mean, that does happen. So how there will be coming a point, right, where you will have to censor yourself. You will have to make compromises. You will have to say things in public that perhaps, I don't know. I mean, have you prepared yourself emotionally that this might happen?
You know, the thing I notice is that even the CEOs, even in the corporate private sector, once you get into a position of power, of some influence, anything you say will upset a certain group anyway. If you said X, that's going to displease group Y. If you say something to support Y, it's going to upset group X.
And you're ready to deal with that?
And I'm saying, I'm saying people in the position of power, they realize that, you know, you can't make everyone happy. You can't make everyone happy. And sometimes I think leaders, if they speak their mind outright, I don't see that as a sign of strength. Sometimes it's signs of naivety. By expressing your true feelings, it might, for instance, have you ever seen a CEO come out and said that, listen, our product is really, really shit. You know, don't buy it. There's a lot of corruption inside. You know, how would his shareholders take it?
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
I mean, sometimes by speaking truth, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. So I guess in simple term, it's not either or. I think it's more nuances and much more complicated.
It is, it's nuanced, because at the end of the day, if the CEO is producing shit, then he should be fired anyway, right? But so, I mean, obviously then it comes to the Thai culture of, you know, saving face, graying dye. I mean, how do you view this part of Thai culture? Do you feel that it's a strength, it's a strong characteristic of us? I mean, what are the pros and cons of this national trait we have?
Like most human traits, psychologically speaking, it has both strength and weaknesses. Like I think I wrote a piece on this. Kreng Chai is good. Kreng Chai, it's quite charming, you know, when, you know, say you've entered to your neighbor's kitchen and they offered you a cup of tea. But out of politeness, oh, it's okay, it might have been right. Oh, thank you so much, I had better go. You know, that's just like, because they don't want to be intruding on their time. And perhaps if you even think that deeper, maybe the neighbor's host do not actually have time to be sitting down yabbing to the neighbors. But they did it because they were Kreng Chai as well. Right? Do you understand? Do you understand? So it's like a double Kreng Chai. And then the guy turns it down. Okay? Kreng Chai as well. So it's quite nice because you are always thinking about the other person's feelings.
Yes.
Well, what's Pim going to think? Would that hurt? Would my statement be hurting Pim's feelings?
That is actually one of the best descriptions of Greng Dai I've heard.
Would it be hurting? Would it be, if I said something, would it hurt her, her feelings? Would she be, having second thought? Things like that. So Greng Chai, the strength is that you think about the other person's feelings and considerations and positions quite a lot.
Yes.
I mean, right now, the person I can think of that has absolutely no Greng Chai is Donald Trump.
Oh no, he doesn't have any of that.
So this is like this is a typical Thai with Greng Chai, and then you got Donald Trump right here. You know what I mean? Donald Trump, he speaks his mind. He pushed, shove people around. So okay, but the downside to Greng Chai is that you never really get to speak your mind, and often in life, which is what I've learned in the West, you need to be assertive. You need to stand up for yourself. Because if you Greng Chai 24/7 a day, people are going to treat you accordingly.
They're going to walk all over you.
There you go.
Yeah. So this Western perspective you have, what was your education again? Can you remind us?
I started my overseas schooling in Singapore. I'm in grade 3. I was in Singapore for 2 years, and then after which I moved to Australia from grade 6 onwards. So I was there for about 15 years until I came back to Bangkok.
So all your formative years were abroad?
Indeed.
Yeah, okay. And you studied what? What did you graduate in?
Psychology.
Ah, okay. It makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so we've got this Greng Chai thing, right? And this not having straight talk thing.
Could I just add one more thing about Greng Chai? Thais, they need to learn to differentiate between being assertive and being aggressive. They are different things.
Ooh, okay, expand.
If someone is pushing you around and you said no, can you please stop it? I don't like it. That's being assertive. But if you yell back, or start pushing and shoving around, that's aggression. It's different.
Why don't we have that differentiation?
Because, like I said, it comes to Greng Chai because Thais are taught about this Greng Chai.
So when we lose it, we go all out?
Indeed.
Right.
Look at it from a continuum, basis. You have Greng Chai on your left, and then you have, the whole, brawls and, aggressions towards the right. Being assertive is just somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's interesting how we have so many nuances.
You're able to argue back to a senior, to a people of more powerful position than you, like a student arguing with her teacher, a son arguing with his dad, a citizen arguing with the mayor or the governor.
Yeah.
In Thai culture, that's considered aggressive.
Yes.
But I'm trying to introduce the concept of being assertive. I'm just saying, I just want to express that, hey, how come there's still smoke on a yearly basis? You said you promised to do something about it, but then there's still smoke each year.
Yeah, doesn't mean I'm shouting or being aggressive.
Indeed.
Yeah. I'm holding you accountable.
That doesn't mean I'm going to grab my gun and shoot the governor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's not do that. Right. So talk about the age gap. Right. This is. I mean, I think that this is going to be like a seismic something, or rather, in Thailand right now. It's affecting politics. I mean, all the social media savvy versus the old-time dinosaurs. The kids out there protesting on the streets, the older people being, accusing them of being disrespectful, the youth saying you're just idiots. I mean, this is fracturing. What do you think about this?
To answer that, I'll give you the big picture first. Basically, throughout Thailand's history, it was absolute monarchy, okay? And then we had constitutional monarchy over the last, when was it, 1920? 1930s, okay, so it's been about almost 100 years now. Constitutional monarchy. So since then, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, up to about 80s, it's really, it's pretty much military dictatorship.
Yeah.
You got General Prem.
Yeah.
You get the big Godfather guy, right? And then towards the sort of 90s onwards, you get the Democrats, get the Democrats type. That's it. Yeah. And then, from my understanding and from my takeaway is that politics up to about the year 2000 was like, coalitions. It was very fragile, prone to, bickering, disruptions, house dissolutions, and then followed by coup.
And parties never really had a platform. It was just all about who they made coalitions with. Yeah.
Indeed. But when Thaksin came into the picture, indeed, it was the first time
Imploded.
It was the first Thai government that stayed for the full term, 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? It was the first time.
First time ever.
In Thailand's political history. Without interruptions, without coup, and it was also a landslide victory as well.
Yeah.
So like I said, before Thaksin, it was all, it's basically like today. Coalitions, a lot of kind of dealing behind the scenes, getting the right number of MPs to negotiate for seats, things like that. Okay, so, and then Thaksin came in, and then he basically saw opportunity from the poor, from the poor Isan, and that's how he got most of his votes, right? It's what I call that was the first disruption.
Yeah.
The second disruption happened. And I'll answer your question, happened about 5 years ago with the formation of Future Forward Party.
Oh, Thanathorn.
Okay, so...
Him I would like to interview as well.
Here's an interesting statistics. About 60% of the world's population, it's 40 years old or under. Okay, about 62, 63%. And yet, only 3% of the young politicians under 35 are represented in Parliament and in Congress.
That is shocking.
So
absolutely unacceptable.
So the last pretty much 500 years of modern history, politics was the game of the old, was the game of the elderly, was the game for people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
I like how you say game. Because in Thai it's เล่นการเมือง, you play politics.
Do you understand?
Of course, yeah.
And I think it's not just Thailand, but it's worldwide as well. But let's focus on Thailand. For the last 20 years, or before that, the youth, they weren't interested in politics because they thought they had no power, and I think it coincided with this little thing
Right.
and social media that enable them to access information firsthand without going through. I'm not going to name any national newspapers,
No.
but you know what they are.
Yeah.
They were the powerful middlemen that shape and frame topics, discussions, politics, things like that,
Yeah.
right? And with this little instrument and social media as well, the youth were able to access political informations issues of the day conveniently and easily, and therefore they became much more involved politically.
And not just access, they had a voice back, right? Suddenly they had things to say and they had people to listen to them. So how do you think that going forward? I mean, because right now we're still under a sort of a blanket of, pandemic measures that has kept everyone, obedient. So once all that's lifted, how do you see this youth versus old age, this tech versus, old world? Is that going to be a problem?
In Thai it's called คนรุ่นใหม่ the new generation, right? If you think about it, the last 5 years, at least in Thailand, this whole new generation thing, it's the biggest trend. It's the macro trend in politics. If you look at all the new and emerging parties, even the old parties, they are recruiting younger faces, new faces, younger politicians in, because they all want to be under this brand called the new generation.
Huh.
They don't want to be left behind. Do you understand?
Interesting, yeah.
Do you understand
Is
about
that
that?
why? Yeah.
It's just basically คนรุ่นใหม่ or the new generation has become this new, this marketing buzzword that now every political party wants in.
Oh, interesting. Like the names of the political parties, ความหวังใหม่ New Hope. What are
สร้างเศรษฐกิจใหม่อนาคต
new
all these
business, new future. Interesting.
And then you see that a lot of the candidates or party members are increasingly younger as opposed to being 60 or 70 years old.
Are they being heard or they're just being recruited to sort of fit the quota?
I reckon a bit of both.
Yeah? Well, you're hoping that you'll be heard, right?
I reckon a bit of both, yeah.
So for me, the big question always is about women as well. So, I mean, we are completely underrepresented. I mean, have you noticed that?
Well, we did have our first female prime minister before the coup.
Sister of a little bit,
Well, yeah.
shake. But but women are very, very underrepresented in Thai politics, right? Is that something that anyone's even thinking about, or is it just low on the agenda? Gender.
I'll make 2 points regarding that. The first is that if you look at some of the female party members, the upcoming ones, either in Pheu Thai or in Klao Kai, a lot of the shining stars are female member of parliaments. Okay, and the second point is that yes, while Thai parliament needs to have more female politicians, I think a bigger gap or the biggest elephant in the room is not having enough young politicians in there.
Okay.
So from my viewpoint, I see that as something that needs to be addressed, more urgent than getting more female representation.
Okay, so that's your viewpoint. So, but so the young representatives go there. It's not just the youth. What are you hoping that they will bring in? What would you bring in? What would you want to see?
Well,
change?
you do realize that, like Gen Y, Gen Z, millenniums, they do in fact have a different outlook of life than the older generations.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have kind of different outlook of life to your dad.
Okay, I thought you were going to say I'm
Right.
old.
No. So You know,
Actually, my
like
dad's pretty liberal.
Gen Zs, the younger generations, they care about the environment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They want more sort of activist government.
Yes.
Government that would actually solve their pain points,
Yeah.
right? And the new generation, if you notice, they're not nationalistic. They didn't grow up in a 40s or 30s, you know, during communist era or during,
Yeah, standing in
you
front of
know,
the flag
you
twice a
know,
day.
exactly.
Yeah, I
You
did.
know, so today's, in fact, I believe today's Thai youth, they have much more in common, listen this, to South Korean youth, American youth, than Thai adults.
Ooh.
Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Because the youth worldwide, I think they have a pretty similar outlook. Like, they want to do the job that they love,
Yeah.
that pays them well,
Yeah.
that gives them flexibility,
Yeah.
like work from home,
Yeah.
you know, work from anywhere, you know, work on their laptop,
On
things
a
like,
day bed.
you know, things like that. They could, you know, work 2 weeks in Phuket and then they work another 2 weeks in Bali, things like that, right? So they care about environment, they want work flexibility, and they actually want their companies that they work for to do good, to benefit society, right?
Yeah.
Which is why you see that a lot of companies that the Thai youth want to go in, companies like the local media news, The Standard, or like Google as well, Bangkok branch. See?
Right.
So,
Right,
so
yeah.
they want to go work in
So not
progressive.
not Siam Cement or something like that.
No, but I hear that that company has a pretty good, you know, salary and perks
Oh,
and,
okay,
and,
so-
and stability in their career.
sorry,
but you know,
Siam Cement.
so basically, with all these factors, I'm beginning to hope that I think the new generations, they're going to bring a lot of good changes to the world
I hope so.
in
Because,
every country.
You know, they always say when you're young, you're liberal, you get old, you become conservative. I mean, I felt when I was young that I was rah, rah, rah liberal. I mean, I still am, but not so rah, rah, rah anymore. But I mean, is this just a cycle? Are we just getting excited about something that happens every generation? Or is technology the one that's going to make that switch to make it actually connect the different
Well,
youths?
if you look like, if you look in Australia or, you know, America or London, the truth is that property prices, housing prices and rental prices have skyrocketed. And today's youth actually cannot afford to own homes any longer.
I know.
Okay, I mean because of, you know, because of the property prices rise. Okay, so they're not in the same game as our parents' generations that, you know, you work from your 9 to 5 job in the same company for 30 years, you save up to pay your first mortgage, to get a house, white fence, your 2 cars, you save for your kids' college. I think that, I don't want to destroy it, but I think that dream, it's increasingly become just that, just a dream. That today youth, they're moving towards sharing economy.
We had a conversation about that as well.
They're
with Michelle.
moving towards that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, why the hell would I want to own a house and I have to pay to the bank for the next 30 years when I'm not even sure that my company will keep me for the next 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With all this, you know, disruption. So they want flexibility. So if there's no ownerships, it means that they can move anywhere in the world. Hang on, I forgot
I know
the question.
we were going on the youth and the,
Yeah.
the adult thing, not adult, and the older generation thing.
So
and how-
to come back to answer your question, it's not going to be the same cycle. Perhaps what? Perhaps if the youth get in their 40s, they start earning big monies, you're concerned that they're going to work for Republicans, they're going to be like, you know, conservative,
that.
you know, low taxes, things like that. And there's a possibility with that. But like I said, even though the tendency might be the case, it won't be the exact replications of what our parents had a generation ago.
Right. Okay. So what about politically? You go in. You know, you're still in your late 30s. You're still young. You're part of that youth group and culture. Let's say a group of you get into politics. What would you want to do? How would you affect all that change that you dream about?
It depends how deep you want me to go.
Go on.
You know, the Young Turks, when to affect real change, you need army and you need money.
Really? Do we need the army?
If
Does anyone?
if you have only the vision, I'm not sure how far that will go.
Today.
But
so how do you get the army without
but
corruption?
no, I wasn't speaking about Thailand specifically. I was talking about in general.
Sorry, I was talking Thailand.
In general.
Right.
But as you're aware, today's youth, 18 years old onward, about 18 to about 30s, allegedly, that's what I've heard, they don't accept cash, vote cash from politicians.
Really?
They don't accept it. They don't accept it. The kids, the youth in Bangkok and other provinces, they just don't, because they're smart enough to know that the 1,000 baht or 2,000 baht, to vote for the said person, they know that it's not going to mean much at all.
No.
2,000 will just pay for their maybe their next 5 meals or 6 meals in Niman Hemin or something. They know that it's not going to go far. They want substantive changes.
But these are urbanites. We're
Indeed.
still talking about a massive rural population. So, how about you? I'm just curious about you yourself. If you do get into a position of power, what would your agendas be? What other issues would you tackle? What are the pressing needs of our country?
Okay. If you look at ASEAN, the 10 countries, and you look at the annual English tests, even Vietnamese and Burmese and Cambodians, they score higher on English proficiency than Thais. I mean, this is just,
extraordinary.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really want to push is that I'm not sure in terms of operations or how to get it. I want Thais to be able to speak English. I want Thai youth to be bilinguals. Like when I went to Malaysia, I could speak a bit of Mandarin and English as well. I want to see that.
And it's not just to watch a movie, is it? It's to read, it's to hear world views, opposing opinions, perspectives, and that's where we're lacking with our more traditional, very focused, dogmatic sort of by rote learning.
Do you know what I mean? And it could be learning through free online courses or whatever, but I think it's time, and I know that many Thais, they have spent thousands and thousands of dollars taking private English classes at shopping malls and private schools, things like that, because they cannot get good quality English language classes in state schools.
No, because the teachers themselves don't.
So
speak English.
so they have to resort to finding English schools outside. I think that's a disgrace.
Yeah.
Thai youth should be able to access English. They should be able to speak bilinguals, and I know that this is going to increase their skills and their opportunities.
Yeah.
Instead of becoming a YouTuber for the Thai audience, they can expand the market to Vietnamese, to Singaporeans, to Britain, to America, right? It'll be opening more doors for them. It might sound ambitious, but I don't think it's not. I think it's a small step for them to get them to enjoy and to practice English, and this is going to help them with their career as well.
So here you are entering this sort of very odd new world of politics, right? With your rather international perspectives. Do you struggle a bit with some pushback from the more traditional factions? I mean, what do they think of all your opinions?
Well, a lot of them are just being Thais, and by that I mean they keep opinions to themselves. But there were, I could see that. But Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, some of them, said that, hey, you might wanna go easy with this or that, you might wanna keep that opinion to yourself,
Yeah.
or like, just, or,
You must step on some toes.
or like, yeah, that was a bit sort of, too direct, for Thai comfort, things like that. But eventually, once they get to know me, and if we, collaborate on a project, then they'll come to terms with it.
So again, assertion rather than aggression.
Indeed.
Right? So you're setting the tone there. So let's talk a little bit about the whole Bangkok thing, right? Because you're talking about the education, and it's all like a lot of it right now. Bangkok gets better education than Chiang Mai. It's just simply the better quality of teachers there. Bangkok's politics is probably, well, no, it's not cleaner at all, is it? But things like corruption are just probably a little bit more obvious here, like on the streets, the police and everything. I mean, this disconnect between central Thailand and the rest of Thailand. How do you feel we can improve that and get it all a bit more even keeled? Economically, right?
It's a classic story. The old guards, they want to keep every province on their leash. That's why by having this country as a pyramid structure, it's easy for them to control.
Yeah.
It's easy for them to dictate policies, national policies, and send funding according to the projects that they have approved.
Yeah.
So that's the crux of it. But I think once today's elites generation dies out, hopefully there'll be changes to the organizational structure of this country, and we would have instead of a pyramid, we have a flatter organization.
Good, because there's already a lot of really amazing initiatives.
I know.
Like
Go on.
CDC. Oh no, not CDC. Well, TCDC,
Yep.
and all those like really innovative step and all these cool things.
I'll give you one example. I mean, Thais enjoy drinking their beer, but as you're aware, there are only two to three brands, national brands, that
Wonder why.
Thais can drink. In a sense, that's like centralization.
Monopoly.
Right?
Monopoly.
Centralizations and monopoly are related.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, like Chiang Mai, we've got we've got all these great natural resources, and I'm sure that if they liberalize and decentralize this beer thinking, think about the other 76 provinces that will have their own unique, local,
Brew.
tasting brew,
Yeah.
right?
So how do we unshackle ourselves from the bunrots and the jarons of the world?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing at the political level and commercial level. By decentralizing it, you're actually giving more power, more freedom for the locals, for Chiang Mai people, Lamphun, Lampang, Nan, Uttaradit, to decide their own fate, to go in their own direction that they see fit.
Absolutely. I mean,
You know what I
Chiang
mean?
Mai should have our own governor elected. I'm still not understanding why it's being appointed from Bangkok.
I mean, if Pattaya can be its own, what do you call it? Its
Yeah.
own special admin zone.
Yeah.
Why couldn't Chiang Mai?
Absolutely.
I mean, apart from Phuket, Chiang Mai is the second biggest tourist receipt, right? And so we should
anymore.
have like an autonomous status.
Absolutely. But the problem is you need the people who have the power to relinquish the power, like the monopolies. You need the monopolies to break up the monopolies. Why would they go against the self-interest? And this is where you're going to get this clash.
But here's an idea. You know about the Great Resignations. People
Yes, that day.
people had to evaluate their careers, their lives during pandemic. Okay, and so they quit en masse. And with the whole, Zoom working culture, working from anywhere culture, I actually see this as an opportunity. Why? Here's one concrete example. I just met this girl who works at Bangkok Bank in Bangkok, and she has got permissions from her boss to work in Chiang Mai, like work from anywhere basically. And she chose Chiang Mai for a month. She'll be returning to Bangkok next month. But she said she loved this kind of, work from home thing. So my point is that in the future, it is no longer required for Bangkokians to stay in Bangkok.
Oh God, are they all going to come up here?
No. So if the elites, if they don't want to centralize, we can get a lot of Bangkokians to move elsewhere because they don't need to be working in Bangkok any longer. They could be moving to Korat, to Ubon Ratchathani, to Uttaradit, to Nakhon Si Thammarat.
And then thus suddenly, naturally, organically.
It's people's driven.
Right. Okay, and people like you, the sons of families
things like
in Bangkok.
Just with a laptop and maybe with some SME, maybe you saved up some money and you want to open a coffee shop or restaurant in in Nan or in Sukhothai or something.
Yeah.
That's how we instead of trying to fight in Parliament, getting people in power to decentralize and in effect dilute the power. We try to create incentives for people living in Bangkok to move out of Bangkok.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know the Tom Yum...
But please not Chiang Mai, please.
No.
Chiang Mai is getting crowded.
Lampang,
and the property prices are going up. But things like Mae Hong Son, Lamphun, Lampang, Nan.
Lovely places.
Wow.
Yeah, Phayao.
Beautiful.
But actually, that's a really interesting because the Tom Yum Goong crisis in '97, right? One thing that happened was that loads of people left the big cities, left Bangkok because they just couldn't afford it. So they went home to their mubans, their villages, and suddenly they took their new faluting ideas with them and they opened homestays, they opened little coffee businesses, and so I think we're going to see the exact same thing now, right? People who suffered during the pandemic, that didn't have a job, they're going to go home. And this is decentralization.
Let me call this, it's called Thailand's Great Resignations.
Love it.
Because Bangkok has been, has been closed for a while, all these, from COVID. So do you realize that majority of people living in Bangkok, they're not Bangkokians?
Yeah.
They're from Isan, they're from the north, they're from the south. They go there because Bangkok is dear New York. It's America's New York. It's the commercial capital. Okay? And I've spoken to so many people from the somtam seller to streets to bus drivers, taxi drivers. They said if it weren't for the higher salaries and wages, there's no way they'll be moving to Bangkok.
Yeah.
No way.
Why would they?
Polluted traffic, things like that. They're only there for the money. Okay, so with this great resignation in Thailand, perhaps Thais will have a second thought. They'll be thinking, well, I should go home to Isan and start my somtam there or something.
Yeah.
Or I could sell shrimp paste and then I could, sell them on Facebook.
Yes.
I could put them on YouTube. I could sell like Pim Ripai. I could be, the next
YouTuber.
Things like that.
Yeah. That when do you think we're going to see the effect of all this? I'm really excited thinking about it now.
I think it's actually underway because like you just mentioned, because of the high rents in Bangkok, right? So when there's no businesses in Bangkok, a lot of Thais actually move back to their provinces.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, very true. My dad's nurse, she's wheeling and dealing on Facebook. Every day she's getting parcels and selling something from someone and buying to someone. People are using technology and yeah, you're right. They don't need to be in an office. So yeah, big changes could come, right?
But we need to, members of parliaments, or if I do get in, these will be the issues that I raise because I want them to know that there is an alternative way than having to, toil through big bad Bangkok.
It's a bit of a shame, because over the last few years I've begun to resent Bangkok. Even though I'm from Bangkok, my family's in Bangkok. I don't hate the city as such, but it's the politics, it's the economic disparity. It's all these issues that just makes me resent this capital city, because I feel as if they're so disconnected from our issues, from our pain, from what we're suffering through. I mean, do you feel that as well, that Bangkok doesn't quite get the rest of, of Thailand?
Immediately before I had moved here, like most, I guess, upper middle class Bangkokians, I thought Bangkok was the center of everything in Thailand. And
you see.
And I had a bit of an elitist, attitude 10 years ago. I thought, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, there was just, those places were exotic places that the people of Bangkok, patronage, once a year. That sounds very elitist.
No, but that's exactly what they think.
Like once a year, and to eat their khao soy, take some selfies for 2 to 3 days before they get back to reality, to Bangkok. I was partying a lot in Thong Lo back in 10 years ago. But then once I moved away from Bangkok, and because I enjoy going to temples and look at designs, things. I'm a bit of a Buddha statues collector as well. So I actually I travel around about 40 provinces within the last 2 to 3 years, minus the COVID period.
Wow.
No, minus COVID period.
Still, that's a lot.
And so what I noticed is that people outside of Bangkok actually have better well-beings than people of Bangkokians. Less traffic, less competitions, easy to get things, less pollution as well, right? So they actually had time to go for a jog in the park in the afternoon. You have absolutely no time. As an office worker, by the time you get out of your office at 7 p.m., by the time you commute back home during the rush hour, you get home by 9 o'clock, you'll be stuffed, you have dinner, you shower, you go to sleep, bang. Yeah. But whereas, people outside, like in Korat, in Ayutthaya, they actually enjoy that work-life balance. Right. And that's what the majority of Thais should be striving for towards.
And traditionally, that is who we are. This whole new work balance is more of our Chinese side, isn't it? I mean, a lot of us, you got Chinese in you, I've got more Chinese in me than Thai.
Here's an idea. My first idea was moving some people living in Bangkok, moving away from Bangkok, right? The Great Resignations. The second idea that comes to my mind is that big Thai companies, AIS, they should be they should be branching out in other provinces as well. Because where businesses go, there'll be employees there as well, right? There'll be workers there. Yeah. So it's both chicken and egg. It's a chicken and egg question, which one comes first. But I think if firms realize that if they move, they're creating new jobs for people outside of Bangkok, and people from Bangkok will be moving towards those jobs as well. So.
And it'll be cheaper wages for them because it's outside Bangkok.
Indeed.
Right? So let's talk about, we're going to end in not too long, but I want to hear, it's quite positive talking to you, right? Because for me, when I talk about politics, I just get depressed. I just get so like, ugh, it's never going to change, So you genuinely feel as if you can affect change?
What's the alternative?
Sulking? No, there's
Status quo, no change.
Yeah. And you want to be an author as well. So tell us a little bit about that. What do you want to write about?
Well, it's just over the last 2 years, the upside of COVID is that I get the time to read. And there are excellent secondhand bookstores in Chiang Mai. There are excellent bookstores out there, and so I've been reading a lot these days.
Yeah.
And it has always been one of my, I guess, life goals to write a book before I reach 50.
About
10 years. Oh, no. No, not about 10 years. I'm sorry. Well, I haven't thought of the exact topic, but it'll be somewhere along, culture, politics, and globalization's intersection.
Yeah.
Something that I always enjoy, those the intersections between cultures. If you think about it, my life, I have one foot in Bangkok, one foot in Chiang Mai, and then at a bigger picture, I have one foot in the West, one foot in the East.
Yes.
So it's going to be a lot of there'll be a lot of hybrid themes, if you know what I mean.
But it's these different perspectives that if you actually really study them and understand them, which you're doing, and you are grasping so many of these concepts, that it gives such a unique insight, right? Because a lot of our politicians right now come from one world,
Very.
one focus, one
Very.
lens. And it's so hard to get any empathy when you come from that perspective. Like you said, they don't understand that outside Bangkok is also real life. So this all is going to bring quite a lot to the table, I reckon, to what you've got to offer politically. So you're going to do the book alongside your political career and run your business? How are you
Hopefully.
spreading it all out?
That's it. I mean, as you're aware, in today's world, it is unwise to have only one job. So there you go. And notwithstanding political career.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Right.
very volatile. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up soon. So would you like to say something to our audience who perhaps at this point are still mainly expats, who are interested in Thai politics? How could they stay involved or stay, abreast? And what should they follow? What should they look for?
Yeah. Be patient with the Thai people. After, with all the faults this country has, no country is perfect, right? No country is perfect. But in the future, there should be an avenue or a platform for expats that call themselves home, that calls Thailand their home. They should be able to, we should be able to get their opinions as well.
Yeah, have a voice of some sort.
We should.
Yeah. Actually, which brings me to, let's try and be a bit positive now, because we have, obviously we critique aspects of Thai culture. That's what you do when you want to make change. But perhaps we end on a more positive note. What do you think that this country has going for it right now at this time? What's there to look forward to? What have we got going?
I still believe that Thailand has the potential to be a tourism superpower. Okay, we have our unique culture, we have our food, we have our beautiful beaches down south and Lana culture, the mountains up north.
Yeah.
So we got those things going,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
But
And
if
the infrastructure.
But if we can add, if we can add the younger politicians in, pushing for changes in, for instance, better transportations, more decentralizations, getting more people, getting more Thais to start using, to be bilinguals.
Yep.
These are all positive changes towards making Thailand, a global, a global country in a world stage.
And preservation of environment
Indeed,
and culture
that too,
as
obviously.
well. Yeah. Because that's something that, for the last 20 years, we've just been like a big oil hole where we've just, like tourism, right? Just digging out our national resources.
Exactly.
Taking advantage of everything. And it's not endless, right? Yeah. Okay, so I think that wraps it up quite positively. Thailand does have hope, right? Here he is. Thank you very, very much, Nakai Edward. That was a really lovely chat. I really enjoyed it.
problem.
So thank you. I'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.